Okay, team, today we are going over how to make currency. I like to think of it as currency comes from three main sources, which is raw drops, items, and league mechanics. This is about how much I made yesterday. I think I started around 50 exalts, and it was around 5 to 6 hours of farming. A few days ago, or before a few days ago, rather, this would have been a cracked haul. But as some of you might have noticed, the inflation of divines has made the market completely fuck off retarded. And I will cover that at the end of the video, but for right now, let's just start with raw drops. When I say raw drops, what I'm referring to is raw currency drops. And the first point to that is you need to stop slamming shit. Knock it the fuck off. At the beginning of a league or any circumstance where the server is wiped, then yes, it's totally fine, especially in the beginning couple of days, to slam items, mainly because you will probably have no choice because there won't be a market yet. But beyond those circumstances, if you are like a slow mover or something like that, or you start late, slamming is pretty much highly unnecessary, and it's usually going to be a complete waste of your currency, especially when you could take 2 or 3 exalts that you would have slammed and just buy something that already has the shit you're looking for that's probably better anyway. With that being said, there are a few cases where you should slam currency, and let's go over those. Generally speaking, the main currency you're going to slam is Orbs of Alchemy. The reason for this is because these are super cheap, and they just set an item automatically to rare with 4 modifiers, so at most, we would only have to exalt it twice if we wanted to get some ideally GG shit, although that will never fucking happen because it's accuracy, evasion, thorns, and fucking tier 1 life regen every time. But sometimes you might get lucky slamming it onto a good base, and let's talk about the bases. The bases I always go after are jewelry. It's jewelry every time. Prismatic rings, amethyst rings are huge, always pick these up. Any type of ruby, sapphire, or topaz ring, and it's because the implicit just gives you an ass ton of res. Also with belts, plate belts are pretty sought after due to armor, and I also included a lazuli ring, because mana for mana stackers, mana stacking is really strong right now. You can also do amulets. I didn't find any amulets before this video. I found a gold amulet, and apparently rarity's hella OP, so we'll slam it on this too. But things like the spirit amulet are pretty good, as well as the all stats amulet, mainly because stats can be kind of a bitch in this game. Or bloodstone amulets, that's the max life one. Those are fine choices as well. And like I said, the reason why alch slamming is fine is because it's pretty much zero risk. You don't really lose anything. You really only stand to gain. These are fairly cheap, and you find them all the time. Without further ado, let's slam some shit and see what we get. So we'll do the prismatic, 1 belt, amethyst ring, ruby ring, lazuli, and a gold amulet. And fingers crossed. Come on, bitch. So what you want to do is you want to slam them and then not look at them immediately because it's scary. And then we do it one by one. Okay, you see a ring like this? Easy. Done. Goodbye. Ooh. Double chaos res? Not bad. Oh, but it landed double mana regen. Chaos slam? Come on, bitch. Okay. All right. We can work with this. This is solid. Okay, see ya. Later. Yep, goodbye. Thank you. This isn't terrible. We'll dump tap that bitch. I'll get that later. And we'll dump tab it. Fuck it. Who cares? Power of dump tabbing. And I'll get, like I said, we'll cover that. And let's try one more belt. See what we get. Ooh, nice. Very good. Okay, sick. Well, didn't get fuck all there. I'll go over all these in a second. That's generally what Algorb slamming is going to look like. There is another case where we slam regals. This is going to be exceptionally more rare, and I have an example of it right here actually, and I'll go over all these rings here in a moment when we get to the item section. I wanted to make a final note when it comes to raw drops. Other than actually picking them up, the only other thing to note about raw drops is that they can be scaled by scaling rares, quantity, and rarity. All of that will cause an increase in raw currency drops. There's a lot of ways to do that. It's going to involve the Atlas, Fub Gun, Magic Finding, and all of that is out of the scope of this video. So unfortunately, that prismatic ring turned into a giant can of worms, and I actually decided to move all of that footage to a separate video that talks about evaluating items and pricing them. But for the purposes of making currency, I don't think you actually need to know how to value items because dump tabs are going to be the main way we sell items, and there are a couple ways to understand whether or not you have over or undervalued something. The two ways that we convert items to currency is either hand listing or using a dump tab. With hand listing, it's very straightforward. You look at an item, you price it for what you think it's worth, and you pretty much let God take the wheel. Now, of course, you're thinking to yourself, hey, fuckface, you just told me I didn't need to know how to value a fucking item, and now you're telling me in order to convert it to currency, I need to value the fucking item. Well, hold on. The reality of it is that by using the default method of selling items that I'm about to tell you, you really kind of don't need to know still how to value the item, and you're pretty much always going to end up pricing it for relatively close to its value. The general method for hand listing items is to place the item in a stash tab, set it to public, and set each item individually priced. Right click the item, go to exact price, and set it for a value that you think is fair. Then we slowly reduce this value over time until the item actually sells. This method ensures that you usually get relatively close to the actual value of the item pretty much every time. In this case, this chess piece was listed at 80. It didn't sell, so I dropped it down to 40. Now I'm going to drop it down to 20. Any lower, and it's getting fucking deleted on cursor. But hopefully it sells for 20, and I can walk with that, and that would, to me, would be the actual value of the item. A good way to know that you've overvalued something is if it sits in your stash tab forever and it just simply never sells. A way that you can better understand the value of items is to go to the trade site and compare something similar. And a way that you can understand that items are undervalued is if some greedy fuckhead messages you instantaneously and a wild pack of Chinese robots also appears and spams the fuck out of you. If that is the case, it is indicative that you have undervalued your item, and you can either, once again, go to the trade website and look at similar items, or you can just play around with the value. Sometimes some guy will be like, yo, I'll give you fucking 3x what you're asking for, whatever. I usually always take those, because honestly, getting it out of your inventory is better than letting it sit there for one extra exalt for an extra fucking week. The other method to selling items is by using a dump tab. Dump tabs follow the exact same functionality as hand listing. They just do it on a much larger scale, and they're a lot more passive and automatic, and they're much easier to work with. Dump tabs are pretty straightforward. You just kind of insert your credit card and pay to win to get stash tabs. Ideally, you get a quad tab because you're going to put a lot of shit in it. You right click it, set exact price on all items. 10 exalts is what I'm going with. And then you kind of just fill it over time with the random shit that you pick up from maps. Personally, I only pick up like the tier 2 3s or whatever and throw it in there because honestly, there's just so much shit on maps now, especially once you get to the higher tiers, it's not really worth it to pick everything up. And this is a really great way to passively generate currency because randomly I'll just get tells for shit and it's like, yo, 10 exalts for whatever the fuck. Also, it's really important that you set the name of your dump tab to include dumper or dump in some form, so everyone who buys from you feels the sting of knowing that they're buying your mindless trash that you didn't actually even fucking look at. After you have filled it and you haven't got hits, you slowly reduce that price to a bottom value. That can be whatever value you want. What's nice about dump tabs is you can do them in any way you feel. I start with 10, I'll probably go down to like 6 or 5, and then after it's sat at my low value, whatever that is, for a while and I haven't gotten any hits, I'll clear the tab and I'll start over. The indicators that you have overvalued things or undervalued things are the exact same as they are when you hand list an item. If you throw something into a dump tab and you immediately get jumped by, again, the same pack of Chinese robots and some greedy Gary who's looking for his free scam item, that is how you know you have undervalued something. This is when you would pull the item out and, again, look at the trade website, maybe find some similar items, or just play around with the value, hand list it however you want to do that. The value of dump tabbing really cannot be overstated because it allows new players to enter the item selling market with having absolutely zero knowledge. The general method that I described will pretty much ensure that you always sell items for their relatively close value, and it will also prevent you from being scammed or just not actually selling items in general. Dump tabbing is extremely potent, especially if you are in high tier maps and you're picking a bunch of extra tier items and you're just throwing stuff in and you don't really know what you're doing. Dump tabbing I cannot recommend enough. Also, when you sell this, you get an ass ton of gold. So if you have gold issues, I don't know what you would have gold issues on, but if you did, dump tabbing will also fix that. Also, whenever you sell a dump tab item, make sure you always look at it. Look the item over to make sure you're not selling something that actually is worth a little bit more, or at the very least, just to understand why it's sold and maybe start to understand and build concepts of where value of items comes from and what mods are particularly valuable. To give you an example of what dump tabbing would look like, you run up to Doriani, you control left click him, you'll see over here 7 items identified, and then what you do, go to your dump tab, and the trick here is just click as fast as you can. You don't want to actually read anything. Being ignorant as fucking possible is the most important part of this, because the moment you look at an item, you will immediately fall into the rabbit hole. So literally, we prime our cursor, bing bong bang bong boom bam 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 boom, done. I have no idea what I put in there. Who knows? Thank God. Thank God we don't know. And that's how you dump tab. Anyways, let's move on to league mechanics. To give a huge credit to PoE 2, which is most certainly not the case in PoE 1, the league mechanics in this game are actually pretty lucrative, and they are, generally speaking, worth your time. In PoE 1, if you weren't Atlas spec'd into something and juicing it with scarabs, it generally was just a total fucking waste. Whereas I can confidently say that's definitely not the case here. Breach, Deli, and Expedition alone are pretty valuable, and they're honestly really not that time inefficient, especially given the state of maps right now and how big they are. Like, it's like, what, a 12-minute fucking walk to the end of Bloodwood just to go all the way back to the beginning because there's some fuckface rare hiding in the 1 pixel of the map that you didn't explore. You'll notice I didn't mention Ritual, by the way, and that's because Ritual just... it's a hard fucking pass, and I'm not falling for it. The fucking small item in the far left corner being a fucking Regal Orb for the 50th time. I don't do Ritual. Fuck off. That being said, the other league mechanics are pretty cracked, and assuming you can do them safely, you for sure should. All the little currencies they generate, with the exception of Catalyst from Breach, it seems, sell for honestly a really decent amount, especially after like the inflation with everything. Like I said before, my personal favorite mechanic is Expedition, although I will admit Deli is starting to win me over. All of these little currencies, they just stack up really fast. And what's nice about that is that once you actually have a decent bit of them, you can just walk over to Alva and go to my favorite place, which is the currency exchange, or as I like to think of it, the money out of air printer. Go to whatever currencies you have. So I'll just use some of the remainder Expedition that I have. Click it, hit Exalts, and then yeah, great. Bing, bong, bang. Sick. Just boom. Right there. That's it. This is what's really dope about these league mechanics. You can do this with all of Expedition, Delirium, and Breach. But for now, let's just go into Expedition because that's the mechanic I focus on the most. To start, the general way that we juice Expeditions is pretty much the general way that you would juice any other kind of map. Ideally, we'd get increased rare monsters and quantity and rarity in the prefixes of the Waystone, and then you would corrupt it. And then ideally it would also be irradiated and corrupted if we could manage that. Moving on, let's run an Expedition in a map. Firstly, these little gravestone looking things are called remnants. Remnants serve no other function other than to apply modifiers to the current bomb and the subsequent blast chains that occur. This means that they will not act retroactively. So if I were to put a bomb here, here, and here, and then pick up this remnant, the 15% increased rarity of items dropped by monsters will only apply to this bomb and the last bomb in the chain. It will not apply to all the prior bombs. This is really important to keep in mind because this is how you min-max Expedition, right? Ideally, I would see an Expedition Logbook remnant, start with that, and then that would apply to all of the subsequent explosions. The same goes for the negative modifier on the remnant as well. That is the dark blue text. There are a few negative modifiers that you have to watch out for. Anytime there's a damage immunity, it'll be like bright yellow and bold, and it's very obvious. Additionally, there'll be a little icon down here that you can highlight after you've placed all your bombs to show you like what you're working with. The only other modifier that I would recommend being careful of, penetrate's kind of a big deal, but there is 3 modifiers that will give them 100% extra damage as an element. That can be really bad, especially when it's in tandem. I don't have anything crazy here, but if you have like 40% more damage, 100% of extra damage as lightning, and then they pen 30 lightning res, they're probably going to one-shot your bitch ass. You can also get it as chaos too. That is something to keep in mind. What's nice about this is you do not have to take them. Sometimes, if you want to risk it and go for the rippy shit, you can, but for the most part, it's probably better to just skip shit that's going to auto one-shot you. And also, be careful. Some of the Expedition mobs are kind of toxic. The little archer guys will off-screen your bitch ass with arrows from super far away. and then I don't even know who does it, but it's these little fucking AIDS explosions that I never see for whatever reason that just pop the shit out of you. Again, they're not a big deal until you start stacking 3 or 4 damage modifiers on. Moving on, these little markers right here with the expedition icon on them, these are unexcavated chests. In order to get them, you must blow them up, and then they'll be lootable. They follow the same rarity scheme as items, so white is normal, blue is magic, and yellow is rare. For the most part, rare chests are actually pretty worth it, but they're honestly somewhat few and far between. It's also important to note that in PoE 2, unlike PoE 1, chests can drop logbooks. So we don't want to totally ignore them, but we don't prioritize them. We just want to grab them wherever we can. We still want to focus on runic monsters, which are these posts right here. The reason why we focus on runic monsters is because expedition logbooks are the primary goal or the thing that we're looking for when we run expeditions in a map. The only reason why runic monsters have a higher priority is because they are the only things that have logbook modifiers from remnants. If you read the remnant, it will only apply to runic monsters, and the same is true for the Atlas passive detailed records. The increased quantity of logbooks only applies to runic monsters as well. And again, we're trying to get logbooks, so that's why we always prioritize these posts right here. As far as I know, I believe that these can spawn either a white, magic, or rare runic monsters, similar to how chests work, and that's where you get the big fat rares from in Expedition. Ideally, we would have a remnant with 50% more rare monsters and 50% increased quantity of logbooks. You'd grab those 2 remnants, and then you would just slam all of these different runic monster posts, or as many runic monster posts as you could. The only exception to prioritizing runic monsters would be if all of the remnants in the map just actually sucked my dick off and they didn't do anything for runic monsters, but I had a bunch of ones for chests. If that was the case, then yeah, you would grab the remnants for chests, and then you would just grab as many chests as you could. This is fairly rare. I think I've seen it a couple times, and I wouldn't really worry about it too much. Beyond that, you pretty much just always want to min-max runic monsters. A couple final things to note before the encounter. Both runic monsters and chests drop everything. They both drop expedition logbooks, they both drop exotic coinage, and they both drop artifacts. Lastly, remember, remnants only provide modifiers to the bomb and subsequent bombs. There is like this weird inclination to gravitate towards them just because, but if they do not have a benefit or modifier to you, just pretend they're not there. I have been guilty of this so much where you're just like, well, I gotta get this fucking thing. I don't even know why. I actually don't even know if you want this if you have rares. I think that you don't want increased number of magic monsters. I think you just want increased rare monsters only, but I could be wrong on that. Finally, let's do the encounter. There really isn't much stuff that is good here. We'll grab this, grab some chests with it. I don't care about any of this shit. I don't think I have any... I don't know. Again, I don't think you want this. I think we just skip that, actually. I think we want to get as many rares as possible, and that maybe takes away rares, question mark. I really didn't get the remnant there. Honestly, fuck, man. PoE 2... Oh, these are so bad. Just kidding. Fuck me. PoE 2, Expedition is rough, dude. Like, your bombs are shit. There's no markers. Fuck it. Dude, this actually is just a dog shit. Fucking Expedition. There's just not a whole lot of options here. Min-max this a little bit. I wouldn't spend too much time min-maxing this. The honest to God truth is that a lot of these are just gonna suck ass. Like, yeah, this one's a fucking wash. Who cares? Hopefully I grab this shit. Should I even tech? Don't care. This is a pretty bad one. But this is where, like I said, Arc is cracked. You literally just stand in the back super far away with Mana Tempest, and it will just auto-chain to everything and kill it for you. This is literally it. There's the big explosion I was talking about. And yeah, that was it. Like I said, this is kind of a rough one. Not really a whole lot going on here. And I'm sure I could have done this better or min-max, but the honest to God truth is, fuck, man, you're going to be doing a gazillion of these, so it's not that big of a deal if you don't do it perfectly. Overall, on the ground, it looks like we got about somewhere in the range of like 4 exalts from it, so... Again, not great, but we'll take it. Moving on, let's go over how to run an Expedition logbook. So Expedition logbooks are going to follow pretty much the same formula, focusing on runic monsters. I don't think you can get logbooks. You'll see remnants that will say 50% increased number of logbooks. I don't think that is actually a thing. But aside from that, we pretty much do the exact same thing where we focus on rares. There is a singular difference, or I guess maybe not singular, there's a few differences actually. So firstly, these little markers right here, these icons, these pretty much guarantee expedition currency and expedition artifacts depending on wherever you're at. I'll go over that in a minute. But these icons are what we want to focus on. So whenever I open up an expedition map, the first thing you're going to look for is Olroth. That is going to be a big giant skull. If ever you see that, you must path to that. That's going to give you 2 Atlas points, and I'll go over the Atlas tree in a second too. When we start, what I do is I open it up and I look for what's kind of like the best paths. There's one over here. Maybe we go kind of like up, come over to the left, get the underground area. Underground areas can contain more of these. They're always pretty good to pick up, especially if they're along the way. But we go down, come all the way around, work my way over here, probably finish right somewhere around here. This is kind of be my guess. Although I do have 28 explosives, I actually could probably just grab this whole thing. 28 explosives is a lot, so something to keep in mind. Although I am pathing around to min-max the amount of artifact chests I get, which are these things right here, once again, you can still grab things that are valuable. Like remnants are still worthwhile here. 10% quantity of items and monsters. This is another one right here. You're still going to pick up the okay, probably gonna get a little too spicy with my pathing here. You're still gonna pick up runic monster markers. These are still a really big deal. We can grab this one. Doesn't actually matter. I don't take chaos damage. Keep going. Rarity. We can blow these up. So if you look on the map here too, anytime you see these little areas that are cut off by like a little hallway, it means you can just blow them up. These can usually be blown up to open up another area, or they introduced these. I don't even honestly know what the fuck these are. The one I got dropped a bunch of transmutes, so I just don't give a shit about them by default, but whatever. Grab the underground area. That is going to be these right here, and I'm still trying to grab runic monster modifiers, or runic monster markers rather. Still, they are important. The more rares, the better. Going down, see another one right here, right? You just got to break the gates on these. Why not, I guess, would be the question. Like, who cares, I suppose. Bucket, don't care. Go over here. X-Fade chest. Ooh, quantity artifacts, draw 5. Monsters, I think they already have 10, though. Oh, fucking look at that. Would you look at that? Dumper coming in hot. Thank you. Yes, sir. Free 8x. Appreciate that. I think that was actually the ring I rolled in the video. I think that was the ring I out-slammed in the video. Hell yeah. It's all coming full circle, you guys. I decided to cut me running the logbook itself, mainly just to save time. It's literally no different from doing it in a map. Again, we're just maximizing the artifact expedition chest. Those are the little markers with the icons, with the expedition icon. That's pretty much it. Grab side areas. Those little hordes, by the way, were total dog shit. They had nothing but transmutes. Make sure you grab the underground areas. And again, go for Olroth. If you see him, he's the big giant skull. That's pretty much it. So with the logbook complete, let's go over a few things. Firstly, this is the haul minus the 8x. What sucks about the logbooks is that the icon on the logbook dictates who you actually get. Danig is the most valuable, followed by Tujin, and then I believe it's Gwenin, and then Rog. Unfortunately, this was a ROG one, so these aren't too crazy in value. Couple exotic coins drops. This is actually pretty low. Usually they're pretty good. Oh, I know why though, and I'll go over that in a second. But I did get an Expedition Precursor tablet. This is cracked. I didn't know these could drop, so there's no reason to go for rares. Next, we'll go over the Atlas tree, and I want to talk about this because one of the reasons why this expedition sucked ass was because I didn't have any of these spec. I didn't have these spec because I needed to test if you could get a logbook and then just spec into all the logbook difficulty nodes and make a super crack logbook run. The answer is yes, you can. If you look at the monster area for this expedition, just kidding, right here, it's monster level 80. So once you get, I think it's +2 to difficulty or whatever it is, the monster level doesn't change, which is why I had to unslot this. I had 2 logbooks. I ran one where I had all of these spec'd to test the monster level, and I did in fact get to monster level 82, and then I took them all off, plugged in this logbook, and it does go down. So you can do this. What this means effectively is that before every expedition you run, if you only have, or every logbook that you run, if you only have like 4 points, you should pretty much spec into logbook difficulty every single time. So you should change your tree to logbook difficulty. Other than that, this is what the tree that you're actually going to run while you're mapping will be. This is because we want the more logbooks, and then also quantity of artifacts is pretty good, I guess, but ultimately we're trying to get this, which is more rare expedition monsters, and then of course more quantity of exotic coinage. This node is honestly pretty good, and I should actually pull out of the 2 points I have going up and spec into this until I get my final Atlas points. This is in fact more area, and I know that because I chat GPT'd it. Fuck off. I don't actually know how to do circle mathematics. It's literally been like 15 fucking years. But that being said, it is more area, so that is something to keep in mind, and it's probably a little bit faster. The only real downside to this is that if you do encounter a damage immunity, it might fuck you or ruin the expedition, but I would actually say that's probably not that big of a deal, given the fact that they're pretty rare. Remnants are cool. I don't really mind this, but the problem is that anytime you come across something that is conditional, so in this case, the condition is that the remnant isn't fucking ass. If the condition is not met and we just get a bunch of dog shit remnants, mind you, this would help, we effectively lose 2 passive points. Whereas this is always active. We always get 50% increased quantity of logbooks dropped by runic monsters, and this is also always active. We always get 50% increased number of rare expedition monsters in our maps. And we also get more exotic coinage, and we get more artifacts up here. These are non-conditional and therefore always active. These are more or less really RNG. And again, if you don't get good shit, you effectively do not have 4 Atlas points in Expedition. Lastly, I don't even know what this one means. So encounters in your Expedition maps have 3 additional chests, and then they despawn after 5 seconds. So does that mean, is it after the character gives the voice line, you have 5 seconds to loot anything? Or is it as you kill everything, you need to run and hit the chest? I think it's the latter, and either way, I'm just not a big fan. Fuck this one. These are obviously the 2 best nodes to go. And again, if you were to go into a logbook, you should pull out of these and grab these 2 nodes right here. Obviously, once I get my last 2 points, you would just grab this logbook difficulty, and then it doesn't matter from there on. And finally, before I end the video, I wanted to go over this like I said I would. I don't know if you guys remember, but it feels at this point years ago. I would talk about the divine inflation and what has happened to the market, and kind of give you my thoughts on it and what I think you should do. So first and foremost, it's important to understand the value of a divine right now. Let's start right there. Currency exchange, good old divine orb, swap it. So divines are... Oh, it looks like they actually kind of went down in price. I was wondering if this was going to happen. Of course, it's right after I buy too. Every fucking time. The reason for this being is because the market prices just skyrocketed overnight. But the problem with this is that the amount of currency that... Well, there's a few problems actually. Firstly, the amount of currency that players can generate stayed the same. It's not like people who couldn't farm money could now farm 3 times the amount of money. And I mean, to put this in perspective, my chess piece has 840 ES. This does have an extra res roll, so this is kind of nice. But it's 840 ES, and I think it's like 64, or no, excuse me, and 49 total resistances. I paid 125 exalts for this. The market now, this shit is literally ridiculous. For similar ES, and ES is the thing we care about the most because for mana stackers, ES translates directly to raw mana, so it's a big deal to get as much ES as you can. But like, this is 1,400 exalts. This is insane. And of course, no one is going to pay this price, and you shouldn't pay this price. And honestly, even here, this is still like 7 times, it was at 56. Like, Jesus, man. That's still a lot of exalts. I mean, you're just... these prices are just insane, and I wouldn't really pay too much mind to them, and I would not buy this shit. I don't really know what you should do with currency right now. I would probably just kind of hold off. I was wondering if divines would go down. I felt like they kind of had no choice, just because with the way that everything is priced, like if something, either the prices have to change or the price of divines have to change. There's no, like, it cannot stay this way. I mentioned already, the amount of currency that people farm simply just did not go up, right? It's not like people just got this new ability to farm 5x the fucking amount of currency that they could have normally. Secondly, the problem with these kinds of items is that the marginal difference between, say, this item and, say, a significantly worse item is not worth even close to the increase in cost. some of this shit, I think, dude, these are ridiculous. Trying to find a more like reasonably priced one, like this one, I guess. Maybe I could argue that given inflation, this is now worth like 200 exalts or something like that. So it's around 3 divine. That's fine. So say this is, we'll use this as an example. So this is not quality right now. I believe this ends up at 789 once it's max quality. But like an item like this still has 63 all res, actually a stun threshold, which is kind of nice, not gonna lie. And it's only 3 div. This item is only marginally worse than all of these other items, but the difference is it's like an actually affordable price. Items like this will ultimately bring the market down. Here's another example, right? This chest piece that I have listed right now for 20 exalts, it has 2 open sockets, it has 64 to total resistances, and I think it will probably, if you were to socket it, it would end up around 500 ES, and it has 50% increased mana regen rate. This is 20 exalts. This shit has not sold at all. These items, while of course they are better, they are not 10x the fucking value, or God, in some cases, Jesus Christ, like 15x the value. Lastly, the other problem with items being this expensive is that you can just fucking craft them. Right? Go find some blues on the ground that have a defense and a mana roll, or 2 defense rolls, and then use a fucking essence over here to craft the 3rd modifier that you're looking for, and then just get lucky with an Exalt Slam. The reality is so if I do the defense one, these are 16x. This is not that bad. How much? Chaos Orbs, 1 to 2, right? You can just straight up buy the currency that you need and get lucky enough to craft some shit like this for literally a like fucking 30th of the price. I mean, this is 28 divines. This is insane. This is almost 2100 exalts. This guy's fucking smoking crack, dude. This dude's literally orbiting Saturn right now. And that's how a lot of these guys are. So my recommendation right now is probably hold off on the market. All of these guys, honestly, especially fucking guys like this, they're literally a bunch of gaslight, greedy Garys trying to fucking take all your hard-earned exalts from a bunch of people who don't actually know what's going on. Don't let them do it. Do not pay for this shit. It's absolutely not worth it. I think at most for a lot of these items, like, would I pay 700 exalts for this chess piece? Fuck no. The whole point of the chess piece is to maximize ES. You know, different items have different slots that you're looking for, or different mods that you're looking for. For the chess piece, you want the most ES you can get. I don't give a fuck about the resistance here, and it sure as fuck is not worth the extra 20 res or the extra 35 res, or whatever the total res increase on this, is not fucking worth 1,000 exalts. This chess piece was 125. So just bear that in mind when you're looking at markets, and make sure you look at the lower cost alternatives. Again, the marginal differences do not equate to the insane value changes that we have going on right now, and I would just hold on to your money, to be frank. But anyways, that'll be the end of this video, you guys. Thank you for watching. I'm sorry I came out so late. Honestly, I've been up for 24 hours after working 10 hours to get this shit out. So I will see you guys in the next one. That'll be out soon, because honestly I had to pivot on this video like twice. And that one will be about valuing items and how to kind of get a gauge for what things are worth and how much you should list it for. Anyways, have a good one, you guys. Deuces.